Hey Scavers, this is Imp from Black Talent Gaming, and I want to welcome you back to yet another installment of Best Settlement Defense. This is actually kind of like an off-the-cuff little bit of something that happened. I was actually preparing for another video, another one of my top 5 lists, and there was an attack at Abernathy Farms, and I was doing something in the middle. I can't quite remember what it was that I was doing, but I rushed over here, do the whole defense thing. I was close enough to it that I was like, oh, I might as well. Plus that I was kind of bored at that point. Anyhow, when I was over here and doing my defense, I kind of realized, I definitely need to update my defenses here at Abernathy Farms, and I thought, this would probably make a really good video because there's something different about Abernathy than any of the other places that I've really fortified heavily. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through my build for Abernathy. And we're going to focus on a defense strategy known as, or at least I'm going to kind of theme my defense strategy around a real-world defense strategy called Defense in Depth. Essentially, we've got lots of land with Abernathy, and we have just enormous amounts of spawn points like nearby, and not all the spawn points are for when Abernathy is getting attacked. Like there's one or two spawn points over there that will just pull in randomly. There's a bloatfly spawn point down there that will pull in randomly. And what I mean by pulling randomly is whenever all the firing is going off from one of the triggered attacks, like these other mobs will be pulled into the confrontation as well. And in this particular firefight, I like several times almost died. Like it initially started with a group of mechanist robots that were attacking from this direction, which I've kind of well prepared for. And then a group of rust devils. There we go, rust spawn. Rust devils appeared. I want to say they appeared right over here. They spawned right over here, and the Rust Devils came in from this direction. The Mechanists were coming in from this direction. That's not quite uncommon. I think there's something about, and see, we lost a dude, so I have to replace him. But it's not quite uncommon for Rust Devils and Mechanists to spawn, at the same place. But the Rust Devils brought like a freaking Night Hag and a huge sentry tank bot. The mechanist forces weren't really that much at all, but what ended up happening is that we only had one person on this side defending. Everybody else was defending on the other side, and like the sheer amount of defenses on this side made it like the mechanist bots got chewed up. But the mechanist bots did end up pulling in like some bloatflies from over here, and then yeah, so then we had mechanists, like 4 bloatflies, and then like a really heavy rust devil attack from that direction. So I've decided I'm going to go with a defense in depth, given as many spawns are nearby. There's, it kind of simulates the way a position might be overrun really quickly. So if you're not familiar, defense in depth is a military strategy that's focused around it's mostly large scale, but when an enemy force would attack, let's say the German army against the Soviet Union, because that is probably the most prominent famous example, the enemy the defensive forces are not all centered around a main front line, and it's kind of weird because you're thinking, okay, then like how the hell are they going to defend? The idea was that the enemy would actually bypass the front line and attempt to exploit that, like going deeper into enemy territory in order to in order to attack logistics and command assets of the frontline forces. And this was a typical thing that was done during the Blitzkrieg. Is, let's say I'm a German soldier or whatever, and I'm attacking from here, and like as soon as I'm able to bypass the front line, like other companies and other brigades and eventually whole divisions or whatever would attempt to encircle the enemy forces that made up the front line, and that would be called a salient or a salient. And highly mobile mechanized forces and tank divisions would go past those areas and attempt to attack logistics and command centers towards the rear. And because these salient forces would be surrounded and without without support, without command, without logistics, without new resources and everything like that, they'd more than likely they just give up, but if they did continue fighting, like, eventually you're going to run out of ammo, and you're not receiving any information, you're not receiving any commands or instructions from higher sources, so it all fell apart. It all became a shit show. So defense in depth was all about still having a front line, but you would have several levels of secondary defensive lines, and you'd even have smaller elements within your rear area that were designed to be able to hold out against a salient type of situation. And the idea was, okay, so let's say I'm, an invader or whatever, and you'll see how this kind of plays out and how this might be beneficial in settlement defense here in a second. If I'm attacking here and I'm not able to overcome these guys, I'm having to stay here and try to deal with them, even as, like, one Rust Devil is running this way towards this thing and he gets slaughtered because there's so many over here. So the idea is that if you have so many defensive emplacements like this and they're really well situated, but they do allow convenient paths for other Rust Devils or other raiders to get past them, some of the Rust Devils and some of the raiders will stay and try to deal with these, and then the other ones will try to go past them and get obliterated by other defenses in other positions. So that's what we're going to do, and I think the best way to try to simulate this defensive strategy would be essentially these machine gun nests that I kind of build right here, and make a couple more machine gun nests right out here. And the reason that this works really well with Abernathy farms is because Abernathy is quite a large settlement. I'm going to try to replicate this defensive strategy wherever I have pretty much two things. If I have low manpower, large land area, and a lot of resources being extracted from that land area. Because of the way the formula works, you're going to have a lot more attacks where you have a lot of resources being extracted, especially food. So Abernathy farms, probably Grey Gardens would be a good candidate for defense in depth. Yeah, alright, so let's go ahead and get started. And I think really, keep it simple, stupid. I think probably the best thing we can do is just replicate this right here. Because I found in the last attack, this little machine gun nest really held its own, really did well. So I'm going to try to build one of those right out here. Let's go ahead and open up our thing. And you see, like I said, Abernathy has huge areas. So I'm going to be... And, one of the reasons I'm also wanting to expand the defensive capabilities of Abernathy is simply because I am going to be utilizing more and more of Abernathy's farm space, because I want it to provide a lot of the food for the settlements in my game. And so if we go over here, so this is the extent... And I do believe there's a spawn right here by this rock. We've got that machine gun post there. We've got that right there. Alright, I'm gonna put a machine gun nest right here. Maybe right here. And the idea is if something spawns right here, and once again this only applies when I'm actually when the cell is loaded, so when I'm in the area. So if a raiders spawn right here, a couple of them will be drawn to try to deal with a machine gun nest over here, and the idea is, hopefully the other ones may go straight on up, towards this position over here. And I'm going to try to make it circular so that if I'm ever having to run up to Abernathy because it's being attacked, the machine guns will still be able to fire in this direction, or at least there will be one pointed in this direction, hopefully to pull a couple of attackers away. So I think right here is a good position. Let's go over here. I'll list the mod in the description that I use, because once again I have one of the expanded settlement building mods that allows me to build all these cool, unique things right here. And we're gonna go with sandbags, because you can't go wrong with sandbags. Or wait, maybe we'll go one. There. How's that look? Looks kind of fucked up. Let's see if I can get him to. There we go. It's a little bit better. That way we'll have a little bit of solid defense, because I don't know if the sandbags from this mod can be run over, but I know, you know, like regular vanilla sandbags can be. We're gonna stick another rock right there. If it'll let me. Yeah. I almost feel like doing this. 'Cause I hate it when they kind of clip out, you know what I'm saying? Alright, we're gonna just move that in right there. So that way we can have a turret here, and then of course sandbags here. And since this is down elevation, we're gonna want to use a sandbag that has something that prevents clipping, which is right here. So we're gonna and I'm out of cloth. Alright. I think I just consumed all of my cigarettes. That's great. Okay, that's a lot of cloth. Let's see. Alright, give me a second. I'm going to find some more cloth and continue this. So just bear with me. Alright, so luckily the Abernathy's carry cloth shipments or whatever. So here's our little machine gun nest. Rocks on one side, sandbags on the other. I didn't realize how expensive the sandbags would be, but that's alright. Now let's go ahead and place this, the turrets. And in case you're wondering, you're like, okay, what's the point of this like miniature little sandbag nest or whatever? The whole idea behind it is, okay, suppose I'm an Assaultron hag or whatever the hell they're called. If I'm running over here and there's a turret on this side or something like that, even if like maybe the one right here is down or destroyed and there's one over there or something like that, I'm not going to be able to get in immediately, and I'm going to have to circle around a little bit before I can get in, you know what I'm saying? So the idea is to hopefully buy the turrets a couple of seconds or something like that, have the attackers try to navigate these obstacles. Not sure how effective that is, but you know what? I think it's worth it because it's like cloth and fucking rock. I mean, like, what do I have to lose? Alright, let me go ahead and place some guns, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and build a couple more defense in depth items just to try to beef up this settlement, especially on the backside, because that's where the Rust Devils really fucked us up. And after I get done with everything, I'll take you on a little show of what Abernathy Farms looks like afterwards. Alright guys, so I've gone ahead and finished my defensive constructions here at Abernathy Farms. I'm probably going to be placing a few plants here now, because right now our defensive capability here is like 166, and we are producing, I think, 42, you know, water and food combined or whatever. Let's go ahead and take a look. So you saw me build this right down here, and of course that's the machine gun nest. I'll be honest, I was going to add a couple more placements, but I was running out of oil for the machine guns, but you know, that's alright. So there's a machine gun nest. There is, of course, the other machine gun nest that I had already. Over here is a small little fortress stand type thing. This was actually the first defensive fortification I built here. just a couple of turrets and a couple of watchtowers here. And right behind here is a campfire with some sleeping bags. So that's actually where, in my mind, that's where my guards sleep. Imagine this would be a shitty post because you have to sleep out there. I guess we rotate them back from the headquarters or whatever. All right, if we go back out here, you know, this is maybe one of the weaknesses of defense in depth is that you don't necessarily have. If you don't have good space, especially like in, you know, if you don't have a lot of space to surrender, it becomes hard to execute this strategy because you do need a lot of mobility and you need your forces to be mobile, but you also need a lot of space and hopefully not too many obstacles to overcome. And sometimes, like, those obstacles can be a benefit to your strategy. Sometimes they can be, you know, a detriment. And I would honestly say that any time that you're having to try to incorporate an urban area into a defense in depth strategy, that it just becomes all that much harder because, once again, like for example, this building provides cover against this machine gun. You know what I'm saying? So, like the enemy could try to go around here and go around back and what have you. But I'm not going to focus on that. Let's go ahead and see what I did come up with. So I put a standard tower like I usually make. And then to either side of it, I put a, right here I put one machine gun, blocked by these concrete pillar things. And then a couple more concrete pillars and 2 machine guns on this side. The idea being that if anybody comes from here, they cannot get through without jumping over. I've seen raiders jump before, at least legendaries. I'm not sure if other raiders, like I'm not sure if their AI is that great. So, but anyways, if they want to get around it like without jumping, they might run around it. And at the very top, I've got another machine gun. Eventually, I'm going to place one right there. Hopefully be blasting them away while they're here. And once they come along this axis to try to attack these machine guns, they're opening themselves up to fire from the heavy machine guns that are on the roof. So I think overall that, you know, it's a good defensive layout. It's a good strategy. If I could sum it up in like just a couple of sentences, it's essentially you want to create self-contained defensive sectors or cordons and hope that or at least the idea is that the enemy or part of the enemy will be drawn off to attack this group while the other part goes off and attacks this group, while maybe even a third part goes off and attacks this group. And because they're self-contained and they're kind of designed to fire in multiple directions, you can arrive at Abernathy Farms fairly late into an attack. And I think I've explained this in another video. When the computer is deciding where to spawn the enemy, they start at the spawn point, and the longer it takes you to reach them, the closer they get from the spawn point to the settlement workshop. So like if it, you know, takes you like 12 hours, they might spawn right here, maybe right here or so, instead of actually at the edge there. But if they spawn right here, this is the point I'm trying to say, is because these two areas are still in between them and the workshop, so they're going to pick them up. And really importantly is like anybody who spawns towards the rear of the group may be picked up by this group here, you know what I'm saying? So you may have 1 or 2 that are pulled off and taken aback, and the rest of the group kind of gets slaughtered up front. I still feel that the defensive fortifications here are not yet complete. I'm going to be working on them a little bit more. Maybe a little bit later I'll give y'all an update to my Abernathy Farms, but for now I think this is at least decent enough to where I won't get slaughtered by freaking Rust Devils. Not that I got killed, but man, it was fucking close, dude. Anyhow, I want to thank you for watching. Please click the like and subscribe. If you've got any comments or questions, suggestions, gripes, complaints, go ahead and leave them in the section below where they're intended to be. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.